This is quite literally an actual lawsuit that might literally come down to the definition of the term literally. Viva Frei, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber, and it is yet another defamation vlog. Now, in the community tab on my YouTube channel, I did sort of like an informal survey just to test what would be the level of interest in yet another defamation vlog of the OAN against Comcast, NBC, NBC Universal, and Rachel Maddow, and the answers were astounding. Yes, it's another defamation vlog, and we are very familiar with the law on defamation. It's the facts in this particular case that are very interesting. The facts and the inter-attorney correspondence, it is gold. But without further ado, let's get into the actual lawsuit itself. And you know what? I spoke too quickly. Without further ado is often mispronounced without further adieu. Adieu being French for goodbye, adieu to God. Alright, that was way too much further ado. Let's read the lawsuit. United States District Court, Southern District of California. Herring Networks, Inc. Plaintiff versus Rachel Maddow, Comcast Corporation, NBC Universal Media LLC, and MSNBC Cable LLC. Complaint for defamation and damages. Demand for jury trial. Plaintiff, Herring Networks, Inc. Plaintiff or Herring Networks, by and through its undersigned attorneys, alleges against defendants Rachel Maddow, Comcast Corporation, NBC Universal Media LLC, and MSNBC Cable LLC as follows. Plaintiff owns and operates One America News Network, an independent media organization focused on providing national and international news coverage. OAN's news channel has risen rapidly in prominence and popularity. OAN has become an important voice in American news, providing Americans with a conservative alternative to the major liberal news outlets. Comcast is the nation's largest provider of cable television. Comcast has refused to carry OAN as part of its cable programming because OAN counters the liberal politics of Comcast's own news channel, MSNBC. In July 2019, OAN's president Charles Herring called out and objected to Comcast's anti-competitive censorship of OAN in an email to Comcast's president of content acquisition. A week later, MSNBC's most popular show, The Rachel Maddow Show, opened with a hit piece on OAN. The show's host, Rachel Maddow, told her audiences that OAN really, literally is paid Russian propaganda. Emphasis added. Maddow's statement is utterly and completely false. OAN is wholly owned and financed by the Herrings, an American family. OAN has never been paid or received a penny from Russia or the Russian government. Defendants made this false claim to smear OAN's reputation in retaliation for plaintiff's insistence that defendant treat OAN fairly and offer the OAN news channel to Comcast subscribers. Herring Networks, Inc., the OAN is one of the assets of Herring Networks, Inc., which is why Herring Networks, Inc. is the actual plaintiff, even though the ostensible plaintiff is OAN. I hope I made that clear and not actually more confusing. And then you have the defendants. You have Comcast, which is the largest provider of cable television. MSNBC is one of its channels, and Rachel Maddow is the host of one of the shows on MSNBC. And so here we have Comcast, which owns MSNBC, which employs Rachel Maddow, which is why all of them are defendants to the lawsuit. Do all of the defendants bear an equal amount of exposure as relates to the allegations that serve as the basis of the lawsuit? We'll get into it, but at the very least, they are connected to the point where they can all be added as defendants. Rachel Maddow, because she's the actual individual who said the allegedly defamatory statements, MSNBC because they employ her, and Comcast because they own MSNBC. Now let's get back to the lawsuit. Plaintiff is a California corporation with its principal place of business in San Diego, California. Maddow is an individual residing in New York, New York. Comcast is a Pennsylvania corporation with its principal place of business in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. NBC Universal is a Delaware limited liability company with its principal place of business in Los Angeles, California. MSNBC Cable is a Delaware limited liability company with its principal place of business in New York, New York. And given the geographic diversity of all of the parties to this lawsuit, we get into the jurisdiction and venue allegations to establish jurisdiction and venue. This court has subject matter jurisdiction over plaintiff's claim for defamation pursuant to 28 U.S.C. section 1332 because the claim is between citizens of different states and the amount in controversy exceeds $75,000. Plaintiff is a citizen of California, Maddow is a citizen of New York, Comcast is a citizen of Pennsylvania, NBC Universal is a citizen of Pennsylvania and Delaware by virtue of the citizenship of its sole member. MSNBC Cable is a citizen of Pennsylvania and Delaware by virtue of the citizenship of its members. So something interesting to bear in mind here is the different corporate structure between an incorporation and an LLC, limited liability company. Incorporations are sort of separate legal entities unto themselves, and their citizenship is determined by where they are incorporated. The LLC is a different corporate structure, and it is owned by its members, and the citizenship of the LLC is determined by the citizenship of its members who own the LLC. All that to say, given the diversity of the parties to the suit and other considerations, the plaintiff is alleging that the proper jurisdiction is California. Venue is appropriate in this judicial district pursuant to 28 U.S. USC section 1391b3 because defendants are subject to personal jurisdiction in this district. This court has personal jurisdiction over defendants because each defendant conducts business and or owns property in California. Therefore, each defendant has sufficient contacts with the state of California so as to render the exercise of jurisdiction over them proper. The claim alleged herein arises from defendants' contacts with the state of California. And this also relates to determining the jurisdiction of defamation in and of itself. The jurisdiction for a lawsuit in defamation can arrive where the defamatory statements were heard. So even if the allegedly defamatory words were spoken in New York but republished in California, well, the defamation lawsuit could be filed in the state of California where the defamation occurred. All that to say that in choosing the jurisdiction, obviously the plaintiff is going to want to choose the most favorable jurisdiction, which they probably feel would be the state of California. At the very least, it'll be the most convenient because the plaintiff itself is in the state of California. And now we get into the juicy, juicy facts. The Herring family launched OAN on July 4, 2013 to deliver timely national and international news 24 hours a day. The OAN channel is carried on satellite, cable, and streaming providers. OAN features news programming, political talk shows, and special documentary-style reports. In just a few years, OAN has become the fourth highest-rated national news network as measured by a leading cable provider and is greatly outperforming other emerging cable news networks. OAN is a leading conservative voice in American news. OAN is owned and operated by Herring Networks, which is wholly owned by members of the Herring family. The Herrings are proud, dedicated, and loyal Americans, and they alone own and finance OAN. Defendant Comcast is both the largest cable provider in the United States and a major entertainment company with numerous cable and broadcast channels. Among its news channels is MSNBC, which Comcast owns and operates through its subsidiaries NBC Universal and MSNBC Cable. MSNBC caters to and promotes liberal politics. Despite OAN's rapid rise and growing audience, Comcast has refused to carry OAN on its cable services. Comcast refuses to carry OAN because it counters the liberal message of MSNBC. By this blatant censorship, Comcast is depriving millions of its subscribers from hearing a different viewpoint. Now, when I first started reading this, I thought OAN was alleging the viewpoint discrimination because it was going to get into that constitutional viewpoint discrimination argument. Spoiler alert, they don't. Comcast is a private corporation and the viewpoint discrimination only applies to government. The reason why OAN is setting up this sort of backdrop context is to make the argument that why Rachel Maddow did what she did on her show was direct retaliation for OAN criticizing Comcast for not carrying OAN on their networks. But let's get right to the allegedly defamatory statements that Rachel Maddow made on her show. Christian Ruse and the Daily Beast article. One of OAN's employees is a young man named Christian Ruse. Ruse collects and analyzes articles from other sources and writes articles based on those sources for OAN. Ruse's articles go through OAN's editorial process before they are published. Ruse does not have decision-making authority with respect to the content that is aired on OAN. Ruse was born in the Ukraine. When he moved to the United States, he had no friends or family here. To make ends meet, Ruse began writing articles for Sputnik News in 2014. Sputnik News is affiliated with the Russian government, but Ruse chose the topics and viewpoints of the articles he wrote for Sputnik News. Ruse's articles provided updates about various topics in global economics and international finance. Ruse has never been a staff employee of Sputnik News. He worked as a freelancer for Sputnik News, and his work there had no relation to his work for OAN. Ruse submitted articles to Sputnik on his own and would receive approximately $40 if the articles were accepted. On July 22, 2019, the Daily Beast, an online publication, published an article entitled "Trump's New Favorite Channel Employs Kremlin-Paid Journalist." The article was written by Kevin Poulsen, also known as Dark Dante, the first computer hacker ever to be charged with espionage against the United States government. Poulsen spent 17 months as a fugitive from the law before being arrested in 1991. In 1995, Poulsen pleaded guilty to 7 counts of conspiracy, fraud, and intercepting wire communications. He received the longest prison sentence ever for a computer hacker at that time. United States law enforcement has referred to him as the Hannibal Lecter of computer crime. Poulsen's article identified Ruse as on the payroll of Sputnik News, but Poulsen did not identify any facts tying Ruse's work for OAN to Sputnik News or the Russian government. And that is because there never have been and are no such facts. Rachel Maddow. Maddow is a liberal television host with a show on MSNBC called The Rachel Maddow Show. Maddow is obsessed with conspiracy mongering about a connection between Russia and President Donald Trump. Her obsession is so pronounced that even other media outlets have called her out for lack of journalistic integrity. And you know what? If this lawsuit is drafted properly, there had better be some hard examples to support that allegation.
And there are.
On March 28, 2019, for example, The Guardian published an editorial entitled "Will Rachel Maddow Face a Reckoning Over Her Trump-Russia Coverage?" And a March 27, 2019 editorial published in Politico noted, "For the past 2 years, Rachel Maddow has been a hero of her own spy thriller." The editorial details Maddow's deep delusion with Russian conspiracies. On April 12, 2017, The Intercept published an article entitled "MSNBC's Rachel Maddow Sees a Russia Connection Lurking Around Every Corner." The article noted that MSNBC and Maddow have played a key role in stoking the frenzy over Trump's alleged involvement with Russian meddling in the US presidential race. The Intercept conducted a quantitative study of all 28 episodes of The Rachel Maddow Show in the 6-week period between February 20 and March 21st, 2017. Russia-focused segments accounted for 53% of these broadcasts. In 16 of the 28 episodes analyzed, Russia comprised either all or a substantial part of the A block, the show's headlining and lengthiest segment. So the bottom line takeaway from all of these allegations is that Rachel Maddow is, let's just say, obsessed, to say the least, with the idea of a Russian connection to Donald Trump.
But wait, there's more!
On July 22, 2019, Maddow's show featured a segment on OAN entitled "Staffer on Trump-Favored Network is on Propaganda Kremlin Payroll." A copy of the transcript of the segment is attached here too as Exhibit A. The segment was part and parcel of Maddow's obsession with drawing connections between President Trump and the Russian government. Maddow began by stating that President Trump gave OAN a pass for access to the White House grounds and a permanent seat in the White House briefing. Maddow noted that President Trump quoted this little news outlet and frequently told people that they should be watching them. Maddow proceeded to report on Poulsen's article in the Daily Beast. Maddow failed to mention Poulsen's shadowy criminal history. Then Maddow made a new, false, and maliciously defamatory claim, a claim not in Poulsen's Daily Beast article. Maddow said, "In this case, the most obsequiously pro-Trump right-wing news outlet in America really, literally is paid Russian propaganda." Emphasis added. Maddow's claim that OAN really, literally is paid Russian propaganda is false and intended to malign and harm OAN. OAN is not paid by the Russian government. In fact, OAN has taken no money outside the Herring family whatsoever. None of OAN's content comes from the Russian government. Just a few of my own personal observations. It really sounds like Rachel Maddow is actually jealous of OAN. First of all, I hate it when people refer to anything or anyone as little. How's your little bowling league doing? How's your little club doing?
How's your little YouTube channel doing?
Whenever anyone qualifies anything with the word little, it is degrading, it is demeaning, it is belittling. Not that I'm speaking from any personal experience. And what is going to be Rachel Maddow's defense, as actually suggested by her attorney in a response letter to OAN's initial letter of demand? That when Rachel Maddow said that OAN really, literally is paid Russian propaganda, she did not mean literally, literally. You can't make this stuff up. But first, let's actually read a portion of the transcript from that show. "If the Fox News channel is insufficient pro-Trump for you, you may or may not know that there is another boutique little news outlet that is designed specifically for Trump mega fans. It's called One America News Network. The Trump White House gave this boutique outfit a hard pass for access to the White House grounds and a permanent seat in the White House briefing room. Remember when the White House used to hold press briefings? They had a seat for those. President Trump also started quoting this little news outlet and frequently telling people that they should be watching them, praising their ratings, which is the highest possible praise for this president, right? So much gratuitous use of the belittling term little, it is actually just evidence of pure jealousy. I'll post screenshots of the entirety of the transcript so that you can pause and read it if you are so inclined. I'm just going to go skip to the paragraph containing the allegedly defamatory statement right now. I mean, what? I mean, it's an easy thing to throw out, you know, like an epitaph in the Trump era, right? Hey, that looks like Russian propaganda. In this case, the most obsequious pro-Trump right-wing news outlet in America really, literally is paid Russian propaganda. Their on-air US politics reporter is paid by the Russian government to produce propaganda for that government. And then we get to the defendant's defense, which is literally that the term literally, as used by Rachel Maddow, did not mean literally. On July 25th, 2019, OAN wrote to Comcast and Maddow pursuant to the Code of Civil Procedure, Section 48, demanding a retraction of this false statement. Defendants refused to retract or correct their defamatory statement about OAN. On August 6, 2019, counsel for NBC Universal claimed that when Maddow, a graduate of Stanford and Oxford universities and a Rhodes Scholar, said literally, she actually meant not being literally true. And if you're anything like me, you are literally saying to yourself right now, this is too ridiculous to be true. Surely no lawyer seriously responded in defense to a demand for retraction that when the journalist used the term literally, they used it in the sense of not being literally true. No, impossible. I am literally going to read verbatim from the response letter from the lawyers for NBC Universal. You're not going to believe what I'm going to read. This is the full 2-page response. You can pause and read at your leisure. I am just going to skip to the second page and the relevant paragraph. Ms. Maddow's statement about OAN is also protected opinion based on disclosed facts. In her broadcast, she stated the facts acknowledged in your letter concerning Mr. Ruz's compensation by Sputnik and Sputnik's funding by the Russian government. She then expressed her view that the implication of these facts is that OAN really literally is paid Russian propaganda. Merriam-Webster defines literally to mean in effect, and states that it is used in an exaggerated way to emphasize a statement or description that is not literally true or possible. Similarly, Oxford Dictionaries defines literally to mean used for emphasis while not being literally true. Ms. Maddow's comments could not have been reasonably understood to mean that the Russian government made checks payable to OAN. Indeed, she specifically noted who was paid by Sputnik. Use of the word literally here is the kind of figure of speech that connotes opinion and thus cannot give rise to a defamation claim. So that is the lawyer's argument, and I don't think a great many people are going to accuse that lawyer of lacking creativity. If you think that that argument is, let's just say, malarkey to be polite, give this video a thumbs up, and if you think that that argument holds water, explain why in a comment. My personal opinion is that that argument is untenable to the point of laughability, and that no reasonable person, having heard Rachel Maddow use the term literally, thought that she meant anything other than literally. Discussing the method of payment is confusion for the purposes of distraction. The fact that the lawyer is trying to bring in the methods of payment to distract from the issue is totally irrelevant. In my humble opinion, Rachel Maddow made a bald assertion, a statement of fact, and was in no way conveying her own personal opinion. And incidentally, this actually brings up a question that was raised in the comment section of my video on Donald Trump's defamation lawsuit against the New York Times. I was saying that one of the weaknesses in that lawsuit is that it didn't address that the impugned article was found in the opinion section of the New York Times. And a lot of people in the comment section of that video saying, well, it's very easy to get around defamation law, all I have to do is slap on my opinion to it and therefore I can't be sued for defamation. It is true that merely giving something the superficial description of an opinion when it is in fact a statement of fact will not shield it from a lawsuit in defamation. And so while it may not be an absolute defense, it can nonetheless serve as a defense under proper circumstances. The prime example would be someone saying, I think that behavior is criminal versus saying that individual is a criminal. But whatever, there is no need to argue from an imperfect analogy when we have a perfect example. She said it not only as a fact, but as a literal fact that OAN really literally is paid Russian propaganda. She may actually try to argue that given the fact that Sputnik did in fact pay Ruz, that although hyperbolic, it's close enough to the truth that it can't qualify as defamatory. We will see where this goes, but let's just finish off reading the lawsuit. Maddow's statement was not opinion, moreover, it implied facts that were not in the Daily Beast article, including OAN is paid by the Russian government for running content prepared for or at the direction of the Russian government, and or Ruz is paid by the Russian government for preparing content for OAN for or at the direction of the Russian government. These assertions were intended to be and are false and malicious and were made with reckless disregard for the truth. They were made because OAN, unlike MSNBC, presents a conservative viewpoint and to retaliate against OAN for calling out defendants for their anti-competitive censorship in refusing to distribute OAN. Maddow, MSNBC Cable, NBC Universal, and Comcast made a false statement about plaintiff. MSNBC Cable, NBC Universal, and Comcast took a responsible part in the publication of this statement. The statement was published on MSNBC Cable's cable news channel, and MSNBC Cable has editorial control over the content of the Rachel Maddow show. Upon information and belief, Comcast and NBC Universal were involved in the statement as retaliation for plaintiff's insistence that defendants treat OAN fairly and offer its news channel to Comcast subscribers. This statement constitutes defamation per se because it is damaging on its face to plaintiff's business and reputation. Indeed, the statement amounts to a charge of treason and disloyalty to the United States of America. And remember here that you have two types of defamation. You have defamation per se, which is defamation that is defamatory on its face, and defamation per quad, which is not necessarily defamatory on its face and requires sort of external circumstances to explain why it's defamatory. Plaintiff has suffered harm to its business and reputation and incurred expenses to correct the false statement. Among other things, OAN generates revenue from advertising, and the false statement has and or will result in lost revenues for plaintiff. Maddow, MSNBC Cable, NBC Universal, and Comcast acted with oppression, fraud, and malice. Plaintiff is therefore entitled to punitive damages. And here we have very specific terminology, oppression, fraud, and malice, presumably because that is the criteria required in order to obtain punitive damages in California. Wherefore, plaintiff respectfully prays for a judgment against defendants for 1. Compensatory damages in excess of $10 million, or as will be proven at trial, 2. Punitive damages, 3. Prejudgment interest, 4. Attorney's fees, 5. Costs of suit, and 6. Such other relief that the court deems proper. Alright, that is the lawsuit. It is relatively well drafted, but I do see certain problems. The first being proving the actual damages alleged at the end of the lawsuit, that being losses in advertising revenue. It's not just conceivable, but I would argue entirely probable that the OAN is actually going to see a spike in advertising revenue. I'm fairly certain that there are a ton of companies out there that are going to proactively seek out the OAN as a matter of protest in order to help them through advertising revenue. The question might actually end up being if OAN actually sees a spike in advertising revenue, have they suffered any damages at all? Evidentiary questions that only relate to alleged losses in advertising revenue. As far as the other damages go, the damages to reputation, it is difficult to quantify, but if the court feels that there have been damages incurred, they will arbitrarily fix a number if they have to. Whether or not what Rachel Maddow said qualifies as defamation per se, I think most people would agree that it probably does. To me, it seems pretty clear that being accused of being literally Russian-paid propaganda is defamation per se, especially in this cancel culture era. And along that vein, the fact that it's admitted that Ruse, the reporter, in fact was paid by Sputnik, might that lend, if not plausibility, at the very least some sort of justification for what Rachel Maddow said? Maddow, NBC, Comcast, they can confuse the issue enough to say, yeah, Sputnik paid this reporter who now works for OAN. It's close enough to being true that she can get away saying what she said, even if it's hyperbolic. OAN says that it's defamatory that Rachel Maddow says that it is literally Russian-paid propaganda. And Maddow, Comcast, NBC are going to say, look, you have a reporter that was literally paid by Sputnik News working for you. He may not currently be on the payroll for Sputnik, but he was once paid for by Sputnik News, which is a Russian-controlled entity. I think the statement was made as a matter of fact. I think the statement is factually incorrect, and I think the statement is defamatory. But this is how the argument before the court is going to be muddied, and incidentally, it's a trial by jury that is being requested by OAN. It is a civil matter, so to be decided on the balance of probabilities, but they can still muddy the water to the point where no one can see anything clearly. So that is my milquetoast fence-sitting of a prediction. I think OAN has a very good argument for defamation here. But I do see how Rachel Maddow, Comcast, NBC Universal can make this so confusing that a jury member might not know what to believe. You know what? Forget my milquetoast fence-sitting of a prediction. I'm going to make a hard prediction.
This is going to settle before trial.
And with that, if you like my content, you like my videos, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and drop a comment in the comment section below. It helps feed the algorithm. If you want to support the channel, we've got merch links, we've got a subscribe star, Patreon, PayPal accounts, all in the pinned comment. Remember that I've started a podcast on iTunes, Podbean, and Spotify, and I'm going to try to get it on other platforms. It's called Viva Law Podcast. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. On Twitter, I am the Viva Frei. And now you know your vlog. Peace out. Booyah.